Okay, so hi, my name is Jessica Pisani, and today I'll be doing the dissection of the sheep brain. So even before we get into cutting into the brain, we're going to go ahead and label some of these areas. So this area that I am lifting right here is, there we go. So this is like a tissue layer. This is called the meninges, which is also part of like the dura mater, and a lot of those other areas, they help compact the brain or help provide protection to the brain in case anything does happen. We have the frontal part, or the frontal cortex. This is responsible for higher level thinking, decision making, motor functions, a lot of those very responsible things. We have the temporal lobe, which is down towards the bottom here. This is going to be a lot of the auditory processing since it is right by the ears. Straight above that, we do have the parietal lobe. This is a lot of somasensory processing, touch, pain, a lot of the temperature range, spatial awareness, a lot of those things that are very important for us. Then in the back here in this area, we have the occipital lobe. This is responsible for our eye function, and eye coordination, reflexes, all of those things. Then we have the back here. This is the cerebellum. And so then the cerebellum is, so then it's a lot of motor function, smooth movements, balance, and posture. Then this whole area of the brain from here on up, this is going to be known as the cerebrum. A lot of memory, a lot of the other areas that I've already mentioned happen within here. Motor control, sensory processing, a lot of those areas as well. So then another thing to quickly mention about the brain, so we can see in these lighter areas here that are raised. So then this is going to be known as a gyri or gyrus. Gyri being the plural form, so there are several gyri throughout this. However, there's not nearly as much as there is in the human brain. So as the brain needs to develop more neural connections, it develops like these waves and valleys. So then the waves of it is going to allow for more neurotransmitter or neural connections to happen in just one that it's more localized in one specific area than the brain together just being smooth and allowing for this. Then we have the valleys, as you can see here. I've kind of tore into the membrane here, but this part does go down significantly. And so then these little valley areas that you see that are darker, that are marked by more dark areas other than the blood vessels. So like here's another prime example of one. So then these areas are the valleys that I had mentioned. So these are the sulcus or sulci. But yes, definitely. So then as we go into the brain a little bit, so then we have the cerebrum that is going to be all of this area on both sides of the brain, both left and right. So then throughout this, we will also have the cerebrum that is memory, motor, sensory, cognition, a lot of those areas. And then we also have the cerebellum that's responsible for motor coordination, smooth movements, balance, posture, a lot of those things that sheep are going to need as well. That's going to be this area of the brain as well. And then we also have the brain stem and all of the areas that come along with that. So with the brain stem, we have the medulla oblongata, that is the bottom area of this. And we also have our corpus callosum right here. So this is going to be on both sides of the brain. However, for ease, we are going to go ahead and just show this one side, but it does continue on the side over here that does not want to focus. So as we go ahead and we talk a lot about what eyes and ear processing looks like, we have two really important areas that have been highlighted throughout our semester. So this area right here is going to be known as the superior colliculus, which is responsible for eye reflexes, as it is a part of the occipital lobe, and we have all this functioning all throughout this area of the brain. Then we have our ear processing that is known as the anterior colliculum, which is this small area on both sides of the brain. So we have up here, again, is eye reflexes. As we go down a little bit more and we can see how that moves, that is the anterior colliculus. Another area of the brain that I have not talked about yet, which is like this area that you see that is kind of open on both sides. That is this area. So this is going to be like your lateral ventricle. This is kind of where the third and fourth ventricle live within our brains and sheep brains alike. So this is where a lot of the spinal fluid fills up in the CSF that continues throughout the brain, kind of in that cycle that we've learned about throughout. This is where it lives. So then as we go and look a little bit deeper at the brain stem, so we have the actual spinal cord that's here that is responsible for sending messages throughout the brain and body. Then we do have the medulla oblongata, which is going to be the next area of this. So kind of like this little square here, like goes up to like this first little hump. So then that is responsible for heartbeat, breathing, blood pressure, a lot of those very basic things. Then we go into our next area throughout here. So then this goes up to this second little hump, which is going to be responsible for the pons. So that like helps transmit signals. A lot of the integration of sensory and motor happen here. A lot of different stages of sleep and wake and consciousness also happen in this area of the brain. And then we do go into the midbrain that is here. So the midbrain is more sensory processing, both the eyes and ears, because it is kind of at this midway point of the brain. Let's see. A lot of things happen here as well as like the motor, there's the red nucleus, midbrain, all these types of things that happen within the midbrain as well. And we also have the thalamus right here. And so then the thalamus is very important. It is sensory relay, visual, auditory, taste, smell, a lot of those somasensory areas. So once again, that is going to be right here. And the hypothalamus is going to be right behind it. So kind of like this area, all throughout here. So then that is going to be more responsible for homeostasis, controlling of hunger, thirst, a lot of those like primal areas or things that we experience. And so then on the same subject of our senses, we're also going to point out our olfactory bulbs that are right here throughout. They help bring in a lot of our smell signals, detection of odors, transmit scents, all those same things as the optic nerve, however, for our noses. And then as we go ahead and we flip the brain over, we can also see this area right here. That is not as pronounced as what it usually is, but this is the optic nerve. So it comes in on both sides through here. Messages are brought in from both sides, and then it goes in, enters the brain for processing. So it is almost like a highway for bringing in signals of sight. And another quick area we want to highlight is going to be this little skin flap that I've kind of pulled up. So this is the meninges. It is like a protective layer of the brain. It also comes with the dura mater as well, which this brain does not. However, it is considered to be one of the same, as they all do help protect the brain when it comes to any part of injury or just keeping the fluid together. All of those areas are protected by the meninges, and which is this little flap, or like this little area that you can see I've pulled back, but it covers the entire brain. Okay, then our last few structures that we want to identify, so then we have right here, or in this area, is going to be our pineal gland. That is responsible for things such as the production of melatonin, sleeping, sexual behaviors, a lot of those very animalistic type things, since it is located in the midbrain. And then I did also want to highlight the inferior colliculus. Oh, there we go. On this side of the brain as well, as we go ahead and talk about that.